The Galactic Empire's arrogance. In the vast expanse of the galaxy, no force was more feared or revered than the Galactic Empire. For millennia, the Empire had conquered countless worlds, subjugating species and bending entire civilizations to its will. From the gleaming spires of the imperial capital to the farthest reaches of known space, the Empire's rule was absolute. The Emperors, a council of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, sat at the heart of this vast dominion. They were ancient and proud, their wisdom and authority unquestioned. In their opulent halls, adorned with the spoils of 1,000 worlds, they dictated the fate of trillions. It was here, in the seat of imperial power, that the emperors turned their attention to a small, unremarkable planet on the fringe of their star maps. Earth, they called it. A primitive world, barely worth noting, yet one that had thus far eluded their grasp. Emperor Zeros, his voice dripping with disdain, addressed his fellow rulers. "The humans," he sneered, "have grown bold. They dare to defy our edicts, to challenge our authority in their little corner of the galaxy." Murmurs of assent rippled through the council chamber. The emperors were not used to defiance, least of all from a species as insignificant as humanity. Emperor Vulorus, known for his military prowess, leaned forward. "They are nothing," he declared, his voice hard and cold. "A primitive race, barely out of their own atmosphere. They will learn their place, as all others have before them." The emperors nodded, their course set. Earth would be made to kneel before the might of the Empire, its people enslaved, its resources plundered. It was the way of things, the inevitable march of imperial progress. Orders were given, fleets mobilized. The Imperial Armada, a force that had broken 1,000 worlds, set its course for Earth. Tens of thousands of ships, each a city unto itself, winged their way across the stars, ready to burn humanity's homeworld to ash at the Emperor's command. In their arrogance, the Emperors never considered defeat. Earth was just another primitive planet to be crushed under the boot of imperial might. The humans, with their feeble ships and backward technology, could offer no real resistance. Victory was assured, as it always was. As the imperial fleet hurtled through the void, the emperors lounged in their opulence, already savoring their triumph. They spoke of the riches they would strip from Earth, the slaves they would take, the glory they would reap. Humanity's fate was sealed, their world doomed to join the countless others that had fallen before the unstoppable march of the Galactic Empire. But in their hubris, the emperors had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity, dismissing them as just another primitive species to be conquered. They believed that Earth would be cowed by the mere sight of their mighty fleet, that the humans would prostrate themselves before imperial power. What the emperors failed to understand was that humanity would not go quietly into the night. They were a stubborn, tenacious species, one that had clawed its way up from the mud and reached for the stars through sheer force of will. And now, faced with the greatest threat they had ever known, they would not yield. Unbeknownst to the emperors, even as their fleet bore down on Earth, the humans were preparing. They had seen the Empire's conquests, witnessed the fate of those who stood against imperial might. And in secret, they had been readying themselves for the day when the Emperor's gaze would inevitably fall upon them. Earth's brightest minds, its bravest warriors, had come together to forge a defense against the coming storm. In hidden bases and secret shipyards, they had labored to create weapons and ships capable of standing against the Empire. It was a desperate gamble, a last hope born of grim necessity. As the Imperial fleet drew closer, confident in its invincibility, Earth waited, its trap set, its forces ready. The emperors, blinded by their own arrogance, could not see the danger that awaited them. They believed they were the hunters, that humanity was their prey. But in the depths of space, amidst the silence of the stars, a reckoning was coming. The emperors were about to learn that humanity would not be conquered easily, that when pushed to the brink, the men and women of Earth were capable of wielding power beyond anything the Empire had ever known. In their folly, the emperors had awoken a sleeping giant. And now, as the Imperial fleet descended on Earth, ready to crush humanity beneath its armored heel, the stage was set for a battle that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. The Galactic Empire, in all its arrogance, was about to discover the true meaning of war. Earth's secret preparations. In the shadow of the Galactic Empire's might, Earth had been watching and waiting. For decades, humanity had observed the Empire's relentless expansion, witnessing the subjugation of countless worlds. They had seen civilizations burned to ash, entire species enslaved or exterminated, and they knew, with grim certainty, that their own turn would come. But humanity was not content to sit idle, waiting for the Emperor's judgment. In secret, hidden from the prying eyes of Imperial spies, Earth had begun to prepare for the inevitable confrontation. Deep beneath the surface of their homeworld, in vast underground complexes shielded from detection, Earth's greatest minds had come together. Scientists, engineers, tacticians, the brightest and the best of humanity's intellect, labored tirelessly to devise a means of defense against the Empire's unstoppable might. They had studied the Imperial fleets, analyzing every scrap of data they could gather. They had pored over the wreckage of conquered worlds, reverse engineering the Empire's fearsome technologies. And slowly, painstakingly, they had begun to develop weapons of their own. In hidden shipyards, far from the gaze of Imperial scouts, a new breed of vessel took shape. These ships were unlike anything the Empire had ever faced. Small, agile, and packed with cutting-edge technology. They were designed for stealth and precision, to strike hard and fade away before the enemy could respond. At the heart of these vessels lay a technological marvel, the phase shift drive. This revolutionary engine allowed Earth's ships to slip in and out of normal space, becoming almost impossible to track or target. It was a game-changer, a secret weapon that could give humanity a fighting chance against the Empire's overwhelming numbers. As the ships were built, Earth's bravest and most skilled pilots were recruited and trained. These men and women, the best of the best, honed their skills in secret, learning to fly their nimble craft with almost preternatural skill. They became ghosts, phantoms that could appear and disappear at will, striking with deadly precision. But ships and pilots alone would not be enough to turn the tide against the Empire. Earth's strategists knew that they needed more, a way to even the odds against the Emperor's vast armadas. And so, in laboratories deep underground, another project took shape. Codenamed Prometheus, it was a weapon unlike any other. A vast network of satellites, each armed with a directed energy beam of unimaginable power. When activated, these satellites could rain down destruction on the Imperial fleet, burning through shields and hulls like paper. It was a desperate gamble, a last resort. The Prometheus weapon was untested, its true capabilities unknown. But with the Empire drawing ever closer, Earth had little choice. It was a case of use it or perish. As the final preparations were made, a sense of grim determination settled over Earth. Every man, woman, and child knew what was at stake. They had seen the images of shattered worlds, of civilizations ground to dust beneath the Empire's heel. They knew that failure meant slavery or extinction. But even in the face of this overwhelming threat, humanity did not despair. They had faced extinction before, in the long and bloody history of their species. They had clawed their way up from the primordial muck, survived ice ages and plagues, and the fury of their own destructive tendencies. They would not go quietly into the night. As the Imperial fleet entered the solar system, Earth stood ready. The trap was set, the pieces in place. All that remained was for the emperors to take the bait. In their arrogance, the Imperial commanders did not suspect a thing. They saw only a primitive world, ripe for conquest. They did not see the steel beneath humanity's skin, the fire that burned in their hearts. They did not see the ships, hidden in the shadow of Earth's moon, waiting to strike. They did not see the Prometheus satellites, their targeting systems locked on the Imperial vessels. They did not see the grim determination etched on every human face, the resolve to fight to the last breath. The stage was set, the battle about to begin. Earth, a tiny mote of dust in the vast expanse of the galaxy, stood against the mightiest empire the universe had ever known. It was a moment that would be remembered for eternity, a turning point in the history of the cosmos. The emperors, in their folly, had underestimated humanity. And now, as their fleet bore down on Earth, ready to crush this upstart species, they were about to learn the true meaning of defiance. For Earth would not yield. Humanity would not kneel. They would fight, with every weapon at their disposal, with every ounce of courage and ingenuity they possessed. They would show the galaxy what it meant to be human, to stand, even against impossible odds, and declare in one voice, "We will not go quietly. We will not submit. We will prevail." The trap was set. The pieces were in motion, and as the first Imperial ships entered weapons range, Earth held its breath, ready to unleash hell. The Emperors had started this war, but humanity would finish it. The trap is sprung. The Imperial fleet, a vast armada of gleaming ships, hung in the void above Earth. Thousands of vessels, each a bristling fortress of armor and weapons, ready to rain down destruction at the Emperor's command. It was a sight that had spelled doom for countless worlds, an unstoppable force, a hammer poised to fall. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship, the commander stood tall and proud, his eyes fixed on the viewscreen. Earth hung before him, a blue-green jewel against the blackness of space. It was a primitive world, he thought, a backward civilization that dared to defy the might of the Empire. He smiled coldly, anticipating the slaughter to come. The Emperors had ordered this world subjugated, its people enslaved, its resources plundered. It was a task he relished, a chance to prove his worth, to bathe in the glory of conquest. He turned to his tactical officer, a sneer on his lips. "Scan the planet," he ordered. "Let's see what pitiful defenses these primitives have mustered." The officer complied, his fingers dancing over the console. But as the scan results flickered across the screen, his face paled. "Sir," he said, his voice trembling, "I'm not detecting any defenses. No ships, no orbital platforms. Nothing." The commander frowned, a flicker of unease passing through him. It was too easy. The humans had defied the Empire, had dared to challenge their authority. Surely they would not simply roll over and surrender. But the scans were clear. Earth hung defenseless, ripe for the taking. The commander shook off his doubts, his lips curling into a predatory grin. "Very well," he said. "Prepare the invasion force. We'll crush these primitives and make an example of them." But even as he spoke, even as the Imperial ships began to move into attack formation, something shifted. A ripple passed through space, a sudden distortion that set alarms blaring across the fleet. The commander whirled, his eyes widening in shock. "What was that?" he demanded. Before anyone could respond, space erupted. Ships appeared as if from nowhere, sleek and deadly, their hulls shimmering with an eerie light. They moved with impossible speed and agility, darting between the Imperial vessels like silver fish through a lumbering school of whales. And then they opened fire. Beams of incandescent energy lanced out, slicing through the Imperial ship's shields as if they were paper. Explosions bloomed, hulls buckled and shattered, the void filled with the screams of dying men and the tortured groans of ripped metal. The commander stared in horror, his mind reeling. This was impossible. No one could penetrate Imperial shields so easily. No one could move with such speed and precision. And yet, the evidence was before his eyes. His fleet, the pride of the Empire, was being torn apart. He barked orders, desperate to rally his forces. But it was chaos, pure and utter chaos. The human ships were everywhere and nowhere, striking and then vanishing, leaving only destruction in their wake. The Imperial ships, so used to being the hunters, found themselves the hunted, picked off one by an enemy they could barely see. In the heart of the Imperial formation, a ship exploded, then another. The commander watched in disbelief as a third of his fleet vanished in a series of cataclysmic fireballs. It was like watching the hand of a god sweep across the battlefield, casually swatting his ships aside. He had only a moment to process this before a new horror emerged. From behind Earth's moon, a swarm of objects emerged, small, fast, and glittering with deadly intent. The Prometheus satellites, Earth's hidden trump card, had been unleashed. The satellites swarmed the Imperial fleet, moving with a speed and coordination that defied belief. They danced among the ships, their energy beams cutting with surgical precision. Shields flared and died, hulls melted and ran like wax. The Imperial ships, the mightiest vessels ever constructed, were being dismantled piece by piece. The commander could only watch, his face ashen, as his fleet died around him. This was no battle. It was a slaughter, a rout so complete and devastating that it defied comprehension. He had only a moment to reflect on this before a beam sliced through his own ship's bridge. He had a split second to feel the heat, to see the look of terror on his crew's faces, before the world vanished in a roar of flame and shattered metal. Across the battlefield, the story repeated itself. Imperial ships, once so proud and fearsome, were reduced to drifting wrecks. The human ships darted among them, picking off survivors, ensuring the destruction was complete. It was over in minutes. The mighty Imperial fleet, the scourge of 1,000 worlds, had been shattered. Broken hulks drifted in the void. The silence of space, punctuated by the crackle of fires and the hiss of escaping atmosphere. On Earth, in the hidden command centers, the mood was one of stunned disbelief, then jubilation. They had done it. Against all odds, against the might of the greatest empire the universe had ever known, they had emerged victorious. But even as they celebrated, they knew this was only the beginning. The emperors would not take this defeat lightly. They would return with even greater force, determined to crush this upstart species that had dared to defy them. But for now, for this one shining moment, humanity had triumphed. They had proven to the galaxy and to themselves the depths of their courage, the heights of their ingenuity. They had looked into the face of annihilation and refused to blink. And as the wreckage of the Imperial fleet drifted in the void, a testament to humanity's defiance, a message went out, a broadcast on all frequencies, to every corner of the galaxy. It was a simple message, just 3 words, but they carried the weight of history, the promise of a future unwritten. We are coming. The tide turns. In the aftermath of the battle, the Galactic Empire reeled in shock. Never in its long and bloody history had it suffered such a devastating defeat. The loss of an entire fleet, shattered in mere minutes by a species they had dismissed as primitive, it was unthinkable, a blow to the very foundations of imperial power. On Earth, the celebrations were tempered by grim reality. They had won a great victory, yes, but at a terrible cost. Their cities lay in ruins, millions were dead or wounded, and the fragile infrastructure of their civilization teetered on the brink of collapse. But even in the depths of their exhaustion and grief, humanity did not rest. They knew that this was only the beginning, that the empire would return with a vengeance. And so, even as they tended to their wounds and mourned their dead, they began to prepare for the next phase of the war. In the hidden shipyards, production shifted into overdrive. New ships were built, each one an improvement on the last, incorporating the lessons learned from the battle. The phase shift drives were refined, the weapon systems upgraded, the armor reinforced. At the same time, Earth reached out to its allies, the few species that had managed to resist imperial domination. Messages were sent, treaties forged, resources and knowledge shared. Slowly, painstakingly, a coalition began to form, a united front against the Empire's tyranny. But the emperors were not idle. Enraged by their defeat, they marshaled their forces, calling in fleets from across the galaxy. They would not underestimate humanity again, they vowed. This time, they would crush this upstart species utterly, grinding them to dust beneath the full might of imperial power. And so, the war entered a new phase. The battles were no longer confined to Earth's skies, but spread out across the galaxy. Human ships, sleek and deadly, struck at imperial outposts and supply lines, while the Empire's forces hunted them relentlessly. It was a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The Empire's might was vast, but it was spread thin, forced to defend 1,000 worlds against an enemy that could appear and disappear at will. The human-led coalition, though smaller in number, was nimble and adaptable, striking where the Empire was weakest and then fading away before reinforcements could arrive. For months, the conflict raged, a dance of destruction across the stars. Worlds burned, fleets clashed, and the death toll mounted on both sides. But slowly, inexorably, the tide began to turn. The Empire, for all its power, was a rigid and inflexible thing, slow to adapt to new threats. Its commanders, used to easy victories against outmatched foes, struggled to cope with an enemy that refused to play by the old rules. In contrast, humanity and its allies were quick to learn and evolve. They developed new tactics, new technologies, each one a nasty surprise for the Empire's forces. They learned to coordinate their attacks, to strike in unison across vast distances, leaving the Imperial fleets scrambling to respond. And all the while, dissent began to grow within the Empire itself. The emperors, once seen as infallible, now seemed fallible, their judgment questioned, their power doubted. On the conquered worlds, long simmering resentments boiled over into open rebellion, the subject peoples rising up to throw off the yoke of imperial rule. The emperors responded with characteristic brutality, but even their most fervent reprisals could not stem the tide. For every rebel they killed, 10 more rose to take their place. For every world they brought to heel, another slipped from their grasp. And through it all, Earth and its allies pressed their advantage. They liberated world after world, welcomed new species into their coalition, their ranks swelling with each victory. What had begun as a desperate defense of one small planet had become a galactic crusade, a fight for freedom and self-determination. The Empire, once an unstoppable juggernaut, began to crumble from within. Its economy, strained by the demands of endless war, began to collapse. Its armies, demoralized and depleted, began to desert en masse, and its leaders, the once mighty emperors, found themselves increasingly isolated, beset by enemies from without and within. The end, when it came, was sudden and dramatic. In a coordinated assault, human and allied forces struck at the heart of the Empire, at the gleaming capital world where the emperors held court. It was a battle unlike any other, a desperate, bloody struggle that raged across the planet's surface and in the skies above. But in the end, the Empire's defenses crumbled. The emperors, trapped in their palace, were captured alive, to stand trial for their crimes against the galaxy. And as the news of the Empire's fall spread, as the subject worlds rose up in jubilation, and the Imperial fleet laid down its arms, a new era dawned. An era of freedom, of self-determination, of a galaxy no longer under the heel of tyranny. At the heart of it all stood humanity, bruised and bloodied but unbowed. They had started this war as a small, insignificant species on the fringe of the galaxy. They ended it as the leaders of a galactic coalition, the shapers of a new destiny. It had been a long and terrible journey, a trial by fire that had tested them to the limits of their endurance. But through it all, they had endured, through courage and sacrifice, through ingenuity and sheer stubborn will, they had prevailed. And as the people of Earth looked up at the stars, at a galaxy now free from the shadow of the Empire, they knew that their struggle had not been in vain. They had saved not just themselves, but countless others, and in doing so, they had forged a legacy that would endure for generations to come. The war was over. The Empire was no more. And in its place, a new chapter of galactic history was about to begin, one written not by the whims of tyrants, but by the hopes and dreams of free peoples everywhere. And at the vanguard of this new age stood humanity, ready to face whatever challenges and wonders the future might bring. They had come so far, endured so much, but their journey was far from over. For in a galaxy full of mystery and promise, there would always be new frontiers to explore, new adventures to embark upon. And Earth and its allies would be there to meet them, united in the spirit of discovery and the bonds of friendship forged in the crucible of war. A new era had dawned, and the possibilities were as endless as the stars themselves. Humanity triumphant. In the years that followed the fall of the Galactic Empire, the galaxy underwent a profound transformation. The old order, built on tyranny and oppression, had been swept away, and in its place, a new society began to emerge, one based on principles of freedom, equality, and self-determination. At the forefront of this change stood humanity and its allies. The coalition that had been forged in the fires of war now turned its attention to the task of rebuilding and renewal. Worlds that had been ravaged by conflict were healed, their ecosystems restored, their cities rebuilt. Peoples that had been enslaved for generations were freed, given the chance to chart their own destinies. It was a monumental undertaking, one that required all of humanity's ingenuity and resourcefulness. But they were not alone in their efforts. From across the galaxy, other species stepped forward to lend their aid, sharing their knowledge and resources in a spirit of cooperation and solidarity. And as the wounds of war began to heal, as the galaxy began to prosper under this new order, humanity found itself taking on a new role, that of galactic leader. It was a position they had never sought, but one that they embraced with characteristic determination and idealism. Under Earth's guidance, the old institutions of the Empire were dismantled, replaced by new ones that were more just and equitable. Trade routes were reestablished, diplomatic ties forged, cultural exchanges encouraged. Slowly but surely, a new galactic community began to take shape, one united not by fear and force, but by shared values and common goals. But even as humanity celebrated these triumphs, they knew that their work was far from over. The fall of the Empire had left a power vacuum, and there were many who sought to fill it. Warlords and would-be tyrants, criminal syndicates, and rogue states. Each posed a threat to the fragile peace that had been won at such great cost. And so, even as they worked to build and heal Earth, and its allies remained vigilant, the ships and weapons that had won the war were now turned to the task of keeping the peace, patrolling the spaceways and standing ready to defend the innocent against any threat. It was a delicate balance, and one that required constant effort to maintain. But humanity was nothing if not determined. They had come too far, sacrificed too much, to let their hard-won victories slip away. As the years turned into decades, Earth's influence continued to grow. They became known not just as warriors, but as diplomats and mediators, scientists and explorers. Under their leadership, the galaxy entered a new golden age, a time of discovery and enlightenment, of great works and grand adventures. But through it all, humanity never forgot the lessons of the past. They remembered the arrogance and the hubris of the emperors, the terrible price of unchecked power. And they vowed to never let such tyranny rise again. Instead, they led by example, showing the galaxy what it meant to be truly civilized. To pursue knowledge instead of conquest, to value compassion over cruelty, to seek unity in diversity. They became the conscience of the galaxy, a beacon of hope and a guardian of justice. And as Earth's legacy grew, as their ideals spread to every corner of the cosmos, something remarkable began to happen. The old divisions of race and species began to break down, rendered meaningless in the face of a greater shared identity. No longer were there humans and aliens, but simply galactic citizens, united in their common humanity. It was a transformation that would have been unthinkable just a few generations before, but one that now seemed inevitable, the natural outcome of humanity's tireless efforts. They had not just saved the galaxy, they had changed it, fundamentally and forever. Looking back, it was clear that the war with the Empire had been a turning point, a crucible in which the metal of humanity had been tested and found to be stronger than anyone had ever imagined. It had been a struggle not just for survival, but for the very soul of the galaxy, and in the end, humanity had emerged victorious, not just militarily, but morally and spiritually as well. And now, as Earth's ships continued to explore the vast reaches of space, as its scientists unlocked the secrets of the cosmos, as its artists and dreamers pushed the boundaries of what was possible, the galaxy looked to the future with renewed hope and optimism. For whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever frontiers remained to be conquered, they knew that they would face them together. As one people, one civilization, one galactic community. The Empire was gone, but its lesson remained. A reminder of what could happen when power was left unchecked, when the strong were allowed to prey upon the weak. But it was also a testament to the indomitable spirit of life itself, to the courage and resilience of those who had fought and bled and sacrificed for the sake of a better tomorrow. And as humanity looked out across the stars, at a galaxy it was now theirs to shape and to guide, they knew that their greatest adventures were still ahead of them. For in a universe of infinite wonders and untold possibilities, there would always be new horizons to explore, new dreams to pursue, new stories to write. The tale of humanity's rise from the ashes of war to the pinnacle of galactic civilization would be told for generations to come, a legend to inspire and to guide, a reminder of what could be achieved when the best of humanity's qualities were harnessed in service of a noble cause. But for now, there was still work to be done, still battles to be fought and won, not with weapons and warships, but with compassion and understanding, with the power of ideas and the strength of unity. For this was the true legacy of Earth and its people, not just to have won a war, but to have forged a peace, to have built a society where all could thrive and prosper, to have lit a beacon of hope that would shine for all time across the galaxy. And as humanity set forth to meet its destiny, it did so with a sense of purpose and a clarity of vision, knowing that whatever trials lay ahead, they would face them as they had always done. Together, united by their common hopes and dreams, their shared belief in the fundamental goodness and potential of all living things. The Empire had fallen. The galaxy had been reborn. And at the center of it all, guiding and nurturing and protecting, stood humanity, the once small, once insignificant species that had dared to stand against tyranny, and in doing so, had changed the course of history forever. Their story had only just begun, but already it was one for the ages, a tale of courage and compassion, of unity and hope, of the unquenchable spirit of life itself. And as long as that spirit endured, as long as there were those willing to fight for what was right and true and just, the light of humanity would never be extinguished. For they were the guardians of the galaxy now, and they would never let that light go out.